In the U.S. Army, you can make a choice to make your mark. With over 200 fields to choose from, you can join forces with us and take on anything. Visit GoArmy.com to answer, what's your warrior?
Time to take this submarine back up.
But it's tax season up there, Captain.
You know, all that stressing over taxes isn't necessary with TaxAct.
How did you get...
April here to remind you that with TaxAct, you're guaranteed your maximum refund while filing for less.
Beats being submerged for another month. Hey, Captain?
To your stations. We're headed home.
Guess I should probably close that window I opened.
What?
Kidding.
TaxAct.
Switch to TaxAct today and start for free.
See taxact.com for details.
One thing you have asked me a lot is, do I plan to go into political talk radio, which I did for a while. You and I will discuss the answer, and we'll discuss why it's the answer next. Hey, you, how's it going? How are you? It's AD Roundtree. Welcome to this, your Tuesday edition of the show. Yes, your Tuesday. Like every day that goes by, that's another step that you have taken forward. You're doing awesome. Hang in there. You got this. You are a badass. And if you need something, if there's anything I can do for you to make your Tuesday better, hit me up. I'm here with you. I'm here for you. At ADSXE. It's where you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at ADSXE. Put it in your phone now in case you need it later. First and foremost, thank you so much to everybody that has been listening and sharing and who has decided to support the podcast on Patreon. Patreon.com/ADSXE is where you can do that. I will never put this show behind a paywall. I will never charge a subscription fee. But I think what I can do is I can post these podcasts commercial free on Patreon so that the people that are supporting in that way have the option of listening like that. Patreon.com/ADSXE. Thank you so much for your support. It means so much more than I ever thought it would. So much more than I can fully explain now. It means a lot. Thank you so much for coming along with me on this after 17 years in radio. Which brings me to the topic of today's conversation. I got an email from James in Bradenton, Florida, who I think listened to me on Z105, Bradenton's rock station, which was one of the 50 or so stations that I was on up until December when, as I was looking after my father in Kosovo, my time on your radio came to its end. But I got a message from James about political talk radio. He said, "So sorry to hear about your loss. Sending condolences and support. I lost my father 8 years ago, and the grief never fully goes away. But you get your life back eventually, and memories that caused you pain will eventually bring you joy." That's what I understand about it. Grief is a wild ride. It really is. Like, one moment I'm fine. One moment I'm going through my dad's old toiletries and I completely lose it. I never thought a toothbrush would move me to tears, but it does, and here we are. And it is completely uncontrollable. You can't manage grief. You can't manage grief. Grief manages you, is what I've been told, and it's working out to be totally true. But I hear as well, James, that what you say is true. Eventually you kind of get your life back, in that it's not intrusively just taking over your day or your week anymore. And those memories, like my father's toothbrush bringing me to tears, will eventually maybe bring me joy. And I want to thank you for that. And by the way, to everyone that has been reaching out, a lot of people have said things like, "Oh, I wish there was something I can do." Here's the thing. Nothing takes the pain or the suffering of grief and loss away. I think those are unavoidable. As you and I have discussed on this show many times, the only way out is through. You have to go through these things. You have to process these things. You have to have these things be part of your life. There's no avoiding it. But while you can't take the pain and suffering away from someone going through this, I want you to know that the love and support is really felt, and it really makes a difference. And it's especially helpful, James, hearing from you and people like you that have been through something similar and understand. I don't know why that is. It just is. So thank you. Thank you very much for that. You make a real difference that way. James goes on to say, I miss you on the radio. I loved hearing you on Z105 in Sarasota. And I love the podcast too. But why don't you go back into political radio? We need your voice of reason right now. Why did you stop doing it? I loved your talk show. I used to listen to it in the car with my daughter on Real Radio, and the way you talked about things gave us rare moments where we could agree. Listening to your take on politics and society was something that was very valuable to me, and I think the world needs it now. We are so divided as a nation. James in Bradenton, Florida. Well, thank you so much, James, and I really appreciate that, because that's exactly what I was trying to do. I was trying to bring people together. For those that didn't know, if you only ever listened to me doing music radio, I had a talk show for about, I guess, 5-6 years, about that, so something around that time. And it started off on the radio station that James is talking about, Real Radio 104.1 in Bradenton, Florida. And it was also on the 950 KPRC in Houston. It was on a station in San Francisco. It was on another station in Palm Beach, Florida. So it was on like 4 or 5 stations. It was picking up some momentum. It was getting listeners and ratings and all the things that a radio show needs to sustain itself. But the reason I got into it was, well, back in the day, when I used to do nights on 94.5 The Buzz in Houston, Texas, I would get in, my shift started at 7, I would get in like 6:45, and I would wander down the hallway because there was no one at the FMs anymore. I would wander down the hallway to say what up to my friends at the news stations. And they were always having so much fun. They were goofing off. It's funny because being in rock radio and alternative rock radio, people see us as this freewheeling, crazy, haphazard, devil-may-care bunch. And I guess maybe in a sense we are, but the work that we do is pretty regimented. Things are very timed out. Things are very specific. Things are very deliberate. And I noticed something. I noticed in the world of talk radio, people seem to be just goofing off for 10 to 15 minutes at a time and kind of living a little bit more free and easy than we were, which is, strange because you're coming from rock radio and walking down the hall and finding that some of the real rebels of the microphone are doing talk content. And it looked like a lot of fun. And so I sort of started getting into it and doing little bits and pieces of talk radio with some friends down the hall. We weren't really doing politics. We were just talking about what was going on in the world and goofing on it. It wasn't where we're taking a stance and fire and brimstone telling people that they were right or wrong or whatever. And, well, somewhere along the way, some of my work on a talk station was heard by the people that dealt with talk radio, the folks over at this big network that put all the big talk radio honks on, and they heard it and they approached me with a proposition. They said to me, hey, talk radio in the past has been very divisive. Now, to give you an idea of a time frame, and this is important, it was toward the very tail end of the Obama administration, for those that want to put it in political terms. But they're like, hey, up until this point, talk radio has been very divisive. It's been very right-leaning. That's how we've made good money for many, many years with a lot of very sort of side-taking personalities. And, well, we think we're entering a different era. First and foremost, the hosts are getting older, the audiences are getting older, and we need someone who can get people that are of a younger generation to tune into AM and FM talk radio stations. And we think you could be the guy. I was like, really? Me? They're like, yeah, you're a lot of fun to listen to. You're funny, you're engaging, and you don't scare anyone off. I was like, really? That's cool. What do you mean you don't scare anyone off? And like, here's what we're proposing. And this was the plan that was laid out to me by the big shot callers in the world of talk radio. They said, what we want you to do is this. We think that the day of division is over and done with. We would like you to go on the air without saying which political party you identify the most strongly with, and see if you can bring people of different beliefs together and kind of kumbaya. Bringing people together as opposed to dividing them is the goal with this one. And I was like, well, that sounds great, because I think division is a bad thing. And I think, here's honestly what I think politically. This is what I think. I think that you, me, all of us, we ultimately want the same things. We do. Generally speaking, folks want the same stuff. You want to have a job. You would like it if that job paid for your bills and had something left over at the end of it. You would really like it if that job was doing work that you found meaningful, gave you a sense of purpose. You would like it if qualifications for that job were attainable as well. You would like it if you had more money at the end of the month as opposed to more month at the end of the money. If you have kids, you want them to have a real shot on all of these things. You want your kids to have a real shot at a future. I think generally speaking, you, me, all of us, we all want this stuff. We all want very similar things. And we just might have different ideas about the best way to get there. But the end goal is very, very similar. No matter who you're voting for this month or next month or whenever the hell it is. That's my truly, deeply held belief about politics. We all want the same things. We have different ideas about the best way to get there. And I quite frankly think that we learn more from people that see things differently than people who see things the same. Too much agreement kills a conversation. But I think that if we can talk to people that believe things that are different to what we hold dear, if we can talk to people with different beliefs, we might understand each other's perspectives. We might even learn something from them. Imagine that. And we might get where we all want to go quicker. So I think there's real value in talking to people that you don't agree with. I think there's real value in becoming friends with people that you don't agree with. I think there's real value in understanding and respecting another person's perspective if it's different from yours, and trying to understand and respect how it is they got there. When someone agrees with me, I know why they agree with me. I know what they believe. I know it's the same as me, and I probably have a pretty good idea of how they arrived at that belief. When someone believes something completely different than me, well, I don't know about that. And I'm kind of curious to know. That makes me lean in a little bit more. I think that's one of the real damaging things about the internet. It will, through various algorithms and techie things I don't fully understand, connect you on Google and Facebook and all the other massive tech giant platforms to a bunch of people that think and feel the same way as you. And that is not only dull and boring, but it's also kind of destructive, because it puts you into this sort of constant state of affirmation that you're right and people that agree with you are right, and that anybody else that feels any differently is probably wrong and hates America. I don't think that's good. I don't think that's healthy. I think there's a place for all of us, and I think it'd be great if we could all get along and understand each other. At the very least, respect each other. These are my deeply held beliefs. You will notice my voting record did not come up. And that's for a reason. I'm on your side. I don't care how you voted. I don't care what you believe. As long as you're not hurting people, I'm on your side, and I want things to work out for you, and I want you to do well. So when this was pitched to me, the idea of doing talk radio where I was actively trying to bring people together without saying who I voted for or who I was going to go vote for, I was all for it. talk radio based on unity and kind of bringing folks together and helping to bridge gaps of culture and understanding and everything else that separates us and make us a better, more educated, more cohesive, more prone to talk to each other unit of a country. Yeah, I want to do that, and I want it to be on a bunch of stations, and I want that to be awesome and win. And it was interesting because for a while it did win. Like, I kind of caused some mini ripples in the ocean of talk radio by getting some real ratings. Like I said, for context, this was at the end of the Obama administration. And we were right on the verge of things becoming more divided than they ever have before, at least in my memory. In our lifetime, I think what happened next was, people really, really dug in. And I noticed something. As Donald and Hillary were duking it out on the campaign trail, I noticed something. Hey, let's talk to each other, try and understand each other, try and respect each other, try and get along stuff wasn't going over as well. I remember once... So, what was interesting was I was on a bunch of different talk radio stations, and some of them were a little left-leaning. They were a little left-leaning, and some of them were hard right-leaning. And I noticed that listeners on those stations, mostly it did well, and people liked me, and we were having thoughtful conversations. But there were things starting to creep in. Some of the people on the right-leaning stations, because I wasn't taking a clear and decisive side, were calling me a commie redcoat, saying I should get back to England where I was from. On the other side, people were saying that I was, a secret member of it was interesting. I'll never forget this. And this was where I had a bit of an awakening with what was going on in the world of politics, because I was rolling along, creating my own space, doing good, bringing people together, talking about what was going on either side of the fence, taking pot shots at politicians that I thought were funny on either side of the fence. And I do remember there was one instance where there was somebody beat up at a political protest. Somebody was beat up. And they were beat up by, I don't even, I'm very, very hesitant to say this stuff just because I know that, there's some people salivating going, okay, we're going to find out what he really believes and we're going to jump all over it if it's any different than us. But someone got beat up, and I mentioned that I thought Martin Luther King made great strides in the world of politics with a staunch policy of nonviolence, and his impact was huge and measurable, and you could see it, and he did it without getting into physical altercations. And someone heard that and called me a member of the Hitler Youth, and I don't remember what was it? I don't know. But on the one hand, on some of the right-leaning stations, there were people calling me a commie redcoat, telling me to get back to England. And on the other hand, I was being called a member of the Hitler Youth. Pretty strong. And I remember talking to my agent about it, who has dealt with some of the biggest and most prominent talk radio personalities in the history of the format. And he was like, yeah, that whole thing where you were bringing people together? That really was the idea. That really was the thought, that was the future of talk radio. We have seen things become more divided than ever before. And I was like, it almost feels like if people can't put me in a box, they don't trust me. And they were like, that's sort of exactly how it is. And there's not really a whole lot we can do about it at the time. You can continue to ride it out if you want, and there is a place for you, but it's really tough in broadcast radio, doing talk radio right now, if you aren't clearly defined as one thing or another, and you saying, hey, there's space for everyone. Well, there's just going to be people that are too angry right now to want to hear that. And it's the sort of thing that will scare off cowardly program directors with old ways of thinking. The numbers are there. You're getting ratings. This is doing well. It's attracting an audience. But in terms of getting people to let go of the old guard and the old way of thinking, we're dealing with some stubborn, closed-minded people right now because the whole world is stubborn, closed-minded people at the moment. And they are very scared of scaring off advertising dollars. And I was like, okay, you know what? If I have to claim one side or the other, if I don't get to be about unity, then I'm not interested in doing political talk radio. So I ditched it. And this was probably around 3 years ago. I ditched it. And now, first and foremost, you saying, hey, I really, really value the moments where you gave me occasion to agree with my daughter. That's great. That's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to bring people together of varying opinions. And the fact that I could unite a father and his daughter in moments of agreement and enjoying the same thing together that had to do with politics and social issues and things of that nature, man, so good, so valuable, so awesome, that makes my heart sing because that's exactly what I was setting out to do. But it really got to the point where people are angry. People are dug in. People don't trust you if they can't put you in one box or another. And I have no interest in talking about politics if I can't be who I am, which is someone who genuinely respects everyone. Might not agree, but like I said, as long as you're not hurting people, I respect. And the other reason I'm not interested in doing political talk radio is because there is so much noise right now. Every person with a freaking TikTok account believes that they are the center of the political universe. So here am I, getting on a talk radio station somewhere and I'm just not interested in contributing to the noise at the moment. I'll give you a perfect example. Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day said that he avoids politics. Now, this is a band who have been very vocally political for many years. Their whole American Idiot album was one giant political statement. There's no two ways about it. They are a political band. But Billy Joe said, it's really different now than it was back in 2004 when we put that album out. Now, it's everywhere. You can't get away from it. It's on every TV, every computer, every phone. It's inescapable, and we want to provide an escape at the moment. And I'm kind of on the same page as old Billy Joe from Green Day on that one. I'm very passionate about society and community, and I've always kind of had an outsider's opinion on politics. Remember, I grew up in England, so American politics were kind of an amusing spectator sport until I moved back to America and then became fully ensconced in it. But I have a little bit of distance from it, I suppose. And I just feel like right now, and thank you for saying I'm a voice of unity that the world needs. I appreciate that. I think the best thing I can do to unite people at the moment is to give them a break from that. Give them an escape from that. I genuinely believe the way people get all bent out of shape about politics is it is actively hurting not just America, because this is going on all over the world. It is actively hurting the entire world, and I don't want to contribute to the noise. I genuinely want to bring people together, and I genuinely want to bring people together in a way that gives them an escape from all of that. Even if you are one of those angry TikTokers that's, constantly hoping for more likes and shares on your stuff when you spout off about one thing or another. So for now, until I feel like it would be a productive thing that would move the ball of humanity further down the field, my thoughts on politics stay with me. My focus is, whatever the next thing is, doing something that brings folks together, gives them an escape, gives them a chance to feel like they're heard, gives them a chance to be heard, gives them a chance to know that somebody cares about them and has their back, the way I care about you, the way I've got your back. And so that's my long answer to your short question. Why don't I want to go back into political talk radio? Because right now I don't feel like it's a productive thing. Unity is strength. Division is weakness. What's that Rudyard Kipling quote, the guy that wrote the Jungle Book? The strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. I believe these things. And so, no matter who you are, how you voted, what you believe, I'm on your side. I've got your back. I'm here with you. I'm here for you. That is it for me. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you for being a part of my radio family. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do it all over again. Have a great one. Later.
We're gathered here today to join Mike and Jill in holy matrimony.
So they may file jointly this tax season.
And you are?
April from TaxAct, the tax filing software with the expert guidance to help you file for less and get more.
Works for me. So, Mike, do you take this woman to love, honor, and get her a maximum refund?
I do.
Jill?
Ditto.
I now pronounce you married, filing jointly.
I always cry at filing status updates.
TaxAct.
Switch to TaxAct today and start for free.
See taxact.com for details.
They say to truly understand someone, you must walk a mile in their shoes. Well, at Lexus, we designed the ES with you in mind every step of the way. From class-leading legroom to positioning the touchscreen 4 inches closer. Everything in the Lexus ES, a direct reflection of you. Click the banner to discover more. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer.
2022 ES versus 2021-2022 competitors. Information from manufacturers' websites as of 5/3/2021.